Welcome to the Surrogates Corner with James Mahan.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to an episode of the Surrogates Corner. My name is James Mahan, founder of the Surrogates Corner, a law firm where we are dedicated to serving surrogates and donors during their art journeys or during their surrogacy or donation journeys. Pleasure to be with you. Today we're talking about, again, AI, what the tools might miss when they're looking at your benefit package, and things that you should consider when you're discussing these type of things with your surrogacy agency. So if you remember last time, or if you didn't see the movie or didn't see the episode, go back and check it out. We talked about your base compensation, your twin payments, your monthly allowance, and your C-section fees. Those are kind of the big numbers that are going to drive the overall recruitment ads or the things that you're seeing out there. So like what the agency offers you. The rest of it is going to kind of be the a la carte payments that you're going to see across most agencies. Again, we touched on this slightly. I have a whole nother either podcast and also a blog about this. The difference between an all-inclusive package and a kind of a la carte package. I'm seeing more and more all-inclusive packages. Generally, what that just means is that you have a higher overall number for what you're getting, but it collapses a bunch of all these a la carte payments into like your base comp. So you're almost guaranteed a higher number without having to get certain things like how much you get for an embryo transfer or if you need childcare or lost wages. Again, those packages are up to you. I totally appreciate and understand you can kind of figure out what makes the most sense for you and what things are needed for you, your family situation, for you, your kiddos as we kind of navigate this. But I'm going to talk about mostly an a la carte plan where those payments that we're getting are going to be kind of one-offs for things that happen. So the first one we're going to talk about is your embryo transfer fee. Now, when you get into a program and you start getting through screening and everything else, the first big payment you're usually going to get is when you are able to do your embryo transfer. Most often, these are split into two payments, either a medication start fee and then the actual embryo transfer fee. There are some agencies that lump those two together. They just give you a single transfer fee that covers both. That generally winds up being a higher payment for it. Just check to see what it is that the transfer fee covers. Is this just for the transfer? Is it also for the medications? Is it meant to cover a lot of other incidentals that are just part of the embryo transfer process? Most agencies that I'm seeing are somewhere on the 1,000 range up to about 2,500. The 2,500 for an embryo transfer, again, are usually ones that are covering things like childcare, housekeeping, lost wages as part of that. Sometimes even also the medication start fee. Most agencies wind up with a combination of those in that sort of 2,000 to 2,500 range. Maybe 1,000 for starting medications and 1,500 for doing the embryo transfer. Quick question is, when do those payments get to you? Some agencies still have it in there where they will be paid at the first of the month after the transfer or after you start medications. Again, my preference to you is not to push payments back as far as we can away from the event that actually triggers the payment. So if you do a transfer in the first week of the month, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense why you shouldn't be getting paid for that until the first of the following month, just to make it easier on accounting, because the escrow systems and the accounting software doesn't need it to be made easy on them. They can just do it quickly anyway. So look for when does that pay, what is the payment, just the dollar amount, and then two, when does it get to you? Again, usually 5 days, 7 business days, something in that kind of week range from when the triggering event occurred, either the med starts or the completion of the embryo transfer, is ideally where I would like you to be. The next thing to kind of think about is, what does the transfer fee cover? Again, a lot of agencies, it used to be that transfer fee meant your incidentals. It doesn't cover logistics, so it's not like you have to pay your mileage out of it or your hotel fees or that type of stuff. The per diem, that's going to be all on the travel expenses that usually will get you to and from the clinic. You should not be paying for those things out of pocket or out of your embryo transfer fee. The transfer fee really should just be for going through the embryo transfer. Again, I like to see that in the $1,500 to $2,000 range, preferably paid within 5 to 7 days after the completion of the transfer. And I like it to be separate from things like childcare and lost wages. And the reason for that is it's very unique as to what you probably need for childcare or lost wages, if any, if you're working. I don't want your transfer fee to kind of be cannibalized by the time you took off of work, who you paid the sitter to watch your kiddos when you had to travel, potentially a couple days, maybe flying across the country to do a transfer. You're going to wind up with a very small transfer fee that you actually get as a take home because you paid all these things out of it. So try to look for those things being reimbursed separately. It should just say this is for just going through the transfer and does not cover things like lost wages, childcare, housekeeping, or those type of deals. So that's kind of what you're looking for. If it is, and the agency really wants it to cover those things, then don't be afraid to say, hey, that's fine, but if that's the case, I need this to be a higher payment. Push for that $2,500, maybe $3,000 payment, depending on your lost wage category that you're in, just to make sure that, again, you're kind of protected and compensated fairly for the time and the energy and the other logistical stuff you're going to have to do to get that stuff done. So that's one of the big payments that are in there. And then again, the medical start fee, it can either be its own separate one or lumped in together. You should be somewhere probably ballparking around $2,000 to $2,500 when you add those two in. And again, the sooner they get to you, the better. Another one that we do see a lot is going to be your lost wages. So this one is very difficult for agencies to dynamically factor into their package because every surrogate is just so different as to what they need. Are you salaried? Are you hourly? Are you self-employed? Are you doing the gig worker thing where you have variations kind of week by week as to what you're getting? When you start talking about lost wages or what your current employment situation is, you really want to be upfront with the agency about what you need, what things are important for you. And if there's a lot of variability, my biggest preference now that I'm seeing a lot of is just agreeing to either a flat hourly rate or a daily rate or something that doesn't need to be calculated every time you're asking for lost wages. That is one issue that I have seen and that a lot of disagreements come up about. Well, how many hours did she work? What was her wage rate? If she's working two different jobs, which one was she going to be working? It becomes very, very complicated for escrow to kind of arrive at a number that everyone is happy with. It's probably better just to create a number or stipulate a number is what we call it, saying that when surrogate needs lost wages, we have agreed it's going to be $25 an hour flat for however many hours up to a max of whatever, 40 hours a week typically, whatever the case may be. That just makes it much more simple for everyone. When we need lost wages, it makes it easier on counting. It doesn't cause fighting later on when we disagree over lost wages. So that's definitely one that I like to see in there. There is a number of agencies where the requirement to get lost wages, especially for a bed rest order, is predicated on the idea that you've applied for some type of disability insurance. Depending on the state you're in, you might have a state disability insurance program you can apply to. Some states don't have that and don't use it for pregnancy. Maybe your personal or private employer has an SDI policy that you can use for maternity. Again, it kind of can be hit and miss depending on if the employer will cover it when you're acting as a surrogate as opposed to your own personal pregnancy. Those are things that you want to ask. And the reason for that is that a lot of agencies have kind of an older system in place where it says, the surrogate will use the state disability policy to cover as much as we can. Whatever's not covered by that policy, the parents pick up the difference. But a lot of times they like to put caps on that difference. Maybe it's $500 a week, maybe it's a max of $1,200 a week total. Some number because the parents and the agency knows that lost wages is one of those numbers that can just run away from us. If we're not sure what's going on or if a surrogate gets put on bed rest early, that's one of those numbers that you can just take off. And again, AI, as good as it is, it just can't capture that because it doesn't know what you need. It doesn't know all the nuances for when we might need a bed rest policy or need a state disability program to pick up lost wages for you. So if you have a unique situation there, that's one thing you really want to kind of hone in on and say, we need to buckle down and figure out what this is going to be so it makes sense for both you and the IPs. Because if we don't and we get to contract and we start doing that, it can get a little bit messy when people start disagreeing about, well, why does she need this much or where's that coming from? So it's better if we can just kind of resolve that there. The other big one with lost wages is find out if there's a weekly cap, not in the dollar amount, but how many weeks it will cover. So again, we normally don't see maybe more than 6 weeks of bed rest time periods during a pregnancy. Post-delivery, you can get sort of, maybe 6 to 8 weeks post-delivery. Some agencies have like a built-in maternity plan that will start around 37, 38 weeks where you can just get lost wages during those last couple weeks before delivery. But you don't want that to be capped on an aggregate like the most a surrogate can get is 10 weeks total over the course of the journey, because that means if you have a C-section and you need 8 weeks of lost wages, you only have 2 weeks left over that you can use during the pregnancy. So be very, very cautious when you see time limit caps on lost wages for you, especially when that applies to bed rest, because it's not your fault if the doctor tells you you're not supposed to work. You can't fight the doctor and say, well, I need to be able to work because the parents aren't paying me for this and I can't afford to just not be working. So it's definitely something that we want to make sure is kind of agreed upon and makes sense for everybody and that really will work for you in your unique situation. I try not to assume what a surrogate needs or what's most important to them, but if you have things that are very, very pertinent to you and unique to you, make sure you voice that, especially early on, so that is just part of like your known profile when we start trying to get you matched with IPs that are open and accepting like what it is that you need on the lost wage side. Another one that's kind of out there that we're seeing a lot, that again, it's kind of a weird number to talk about because realistically nobody hopes you need this, but we're talking about the life insurance policy. Most of the policy underwriters that are doing the surrogates life insurance are going to be somewhere in the 250s, but in the low kind of baseline number up to about $750,000. Most of the agencies I'm seeing now are $500,000 policies. They get a little bit weird because a lot of the policies will say that some will go to the surrogates family and some will go to the IP's family. So it's a little bit awkward to say it's like a $600,000 policy, but $500 for surrogate and $100,000 for IPs. And again, it's only because we might run into a situation where we could theoretically lose a surrogate who's carrying the baby. And so the surrogate's family gets something and the IP's family gets something because they have a loss also. But those numbers, again, are kind of in there. They're a little bit morbid because nobody likes thinking about life insurance and why we might need that. Luckily, we very rarely have that ever come up. There are a couple of horror stories out there and tragic situations that have come into play. But you want to make sure that that kind of policy is there and makes sense for you and for what your family needs. The nice thing is that the policy premiums don't vary that much across those different kind of $250,000 to $750,000 policies. So if you need one or you think that you need a particular level, don't be afraid to ask. Just know that usually $750,000 tends to be our cap without needing to do like an actual medical evaluation and a bunch of other stuff that theoretically we could do, but it's just a lot more work to get that done. The final one that I want to talk about is going to be, I'm looking at a different kind of package that makes most sense. Kind of gonna be ones that are gonna be like your contract signing bonuses and a bunch of other little bonuses. So you will find that some agencies will do things like a heartbeat confirmation bonus or a contract signing bonus. Different reasons to sort of throw a bonus in there that just kind of gets to you as a surrogate. Again, I'm all for those. You just want to know, one, what is expected, what sort of things have to trigger to get there. It's nice to get a contract signing bonus because, again, usually it could be a couple months before we do an embryo transfer. The monthly allowance may only be a couple $100. Usually the signing bonuses are somewhere in $1,000 to $2,000 range, which can be just a really nice thing to get through that point in time. If you don't have a compensation payment until the first of the month after heartbeat confirmation, then at least getting like a small bonus for a beta test or for a heartbeat confirmation can be beneficial to you. And again, my goal is not to take as much money as early as we can from the IPs, but it's just to understand that you're going through a process, you're asking your body to do a lot. Hopefully it's either pregnant or thinks it's pregnant and is on the way to getting a viable pregnancy, and that's not trivial for you or for your body or for your family. So making sure that those payments are there for you, that you're adequately compensated, that they make sense. And again, I think that the AI chat tools, the AI bots that are out there will kind of give you some numbers and ranges, which are okay, but it's hard for it to analyze the overall package to know what is really common across the industry and to give you really good advice as to, hey, you should ask to change this or that. So my hope is that this video can kind of take the place of that. If I can be of assistance, feel free to let me know. Again, my goal is to hopefully make it where the initiation process for you and the agency kind of sign up process goes smoothly, because that means that contracts go smoother for us when we get there, and that's what everybody wants. So for that, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. If you like this, please go ahead and like, subscribe, share with a friend. Feel free to tune in next time. We'll be talking again about AI and also what it means for your overall surrogacy contract, what it will tell you, what it will miss, and things that you should be on the lookout for. Until then, thanks.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.